This is the Digital Marketing Experts Podcast episode. No, why am I trying to sound like a radio announcer? Experts in the Wire, episode 109. Izzi Smith. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 109 of Experts on the Wire. We're going to jump right into my interview with Izzi, but before we do that, I wanted to let you all know for the first time on this episode, Experts on the Wire is about to cross 500,000 total downloads. Yes, that's 500,000 downloads, and I truly feel like I could not have done that. We could not have done that without you, the listeners, the great guests, people writing me on Twitter, asking questions for the show. So I just wanted to share that kind of milestone with everyone and say thank you. Thank you for tuning into Experts in the Wire. So today's interview is a great one. We're talking with Izzi Smith all about featured snippet optimization. There's a lot of great actionable stuff in here, so I hope you enjoy that. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 109 of Experts on the Wire with Izzi Smith. Izzi Smith, welcome to episode 109 of Experts on the Wire. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for asking me. I'm very honored. You have such a star-studded cast of SEOs on your podcast.
Yeah, for the listeners, really cool. That is true. There's a lot of good back episodes to go listen
Yes.
to, even if you go all the way back to 3 years ago. So, Izzi, I wanted to begin by asking about your background a little bit. So I do this for all my guests. I go to your LinkedIn. I check out what you've been up to throughout the years. I noticed that you had a degree in photographic journalism, which is very cool. But then you kind of jumped immediately right into an SEO internship. So how did that? Yeah, how did that happen? Was that something? Were you interested in SEO already, or did that just sort of happen by accident?
So it did kind of happen by accident that I found my love in life, which is SEO. I thought my love was to be a journalist with a sort of minor in photography. And during university, I realized that this was not my calling in life. But what really stuck out during my studies was content creation and building my own portfolio and my own website. And I started to teach myself like very basic web design, such as like HTML and CSS and how websites work and all of that. And when I graduated, I didn't want to pursue this career in journalism. As most people know, it's really competitive out there. And I looked for internships in some kind of marketing role. And what stuck out was SEO. As soon as I dug into it, the cool combination of technical and creativity really spoke to me. So I thought, why not try an internship? And what was really nice was it was all the way in Munich, Germany. So it meant that I could move abroad for 6 months, try something new, see a new city. And after the internship, I fell in love with it. So I ended up staying and got deeper and deeper into SEO and online marketing.
And when you were first learning, I'm sure a lot of listeners are curious about how others learned SEO. When you were first learning, what resources or how did you first learn SEO? Were you looking to blogs or videos or podcasts? How did that work for you?
So what I thought were great resources from day one that I still use is Moz's Introduction to SEO, like the Great Beginner's Guide. It's so extensive. I remember printing that out and just scribbling and highlighting everything. But what was super useful was in-depth competitor analysis and website audits. So using technical SEO tools and seeing what they were pointing out, like, okay, this is flagged as a 302 redirect. And then I would know, okay, that's something that I need to pay attention to, but why? And then getting more into that and just researching any sort of topic or buzzword that I could.
So were these other audits that people had published or studies that people had published, or you were kind of doing those on your own or both or what? And I ask because I think that's an interesting, there's still room for good, unique content in the SEO world. And one thing I don't see a whole lot of is people actually reviewing real websites. Is that what you were looking at?
I was doing these audits by myself using the tool set that we have at Sixt. they were really like promoting of self-learning, but also the onboarding process was really cool in the team. So I always had someone to ask, but I love just being left alone and digging into this data and then coming back with the results. But yeah, you're right. There is not that many unique audits out there. And I don't know about you, but when someone does a live site clinic at a conference, it's so entertaining for me. Like I'm just so engrossed in this, and I love that.
That's good. Fun fact, I would like to do more of those. And I actually asked Moz of that when I did a webinar for them like 6 years ago. And I was told at the time, oh, people don't like those. They're not interesting. And so I never pursued that again. But you find those interesting, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm also when it's more of not a mean site audit, but
someone's critical.
All the like juicy things that you can pick up on and point out. And when you have a little bit of a back and forth with the site owner, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm going to maybe revisit that. So I'd love to learn a little bit about Six. So as I understand, it's a car rental company, but so I'm in the United States. They're fairly new here in the US. Is that right?
They're quite new. So we have car rental, and now we're branching out into the whole mobility service provider structure. So we also have car sharing, which is awesome, and ride hailing, so taxi services. And we are Germany's #1 and very well known in Europe, but we are trying to break the US market. We're in, I think, most major cities, not all states yet, unfortunately. But this is such a fun challenge for us on the US team, getting more brand awareness in the US, trying to compete with the big players that everyone knows there.
Yeah, and we're going to chat about that branding stuff in a little while when we talk about featured snippets. If whatever you're able to share, I'd love to know how sort of the SEO, maybe / marketing departments, et cetera, are kind of structured within Sixt. So I consult for a number of fairly bigger clients. And I'm always curious how things are structured in a way where you're able to actually execute and get things done. I think that's one thing a lot of SEOs struggle with is like, we found this really important technical issue, but the development queue is so backed up that we can't do it, or marketing won't approve this content thing. So I'm curious how things are structured for you at Sixt.
So in my somewhat maybe biased opinion, I think the structure we have right now at Sixt is pretty great for getting stuff done in SEO, but this took a lot of time. This took effort, and most of it was revolving around internal education of SEO needs and the importance of what we do. Like, we're not just impacting our KPIs or our goals, we're impacting the company, because a lot of what people see on the SERPs, in organic search, in local search from Sixt is maybe like the first time they're interacting with a company. So it's very important that our needs, get done, get solved. And so what we do is we have quite a large SEO team in-house. We do pretty much all things in-house, which is cool. And we work per domain and destination. So I take care of mainly the UK and the US markets and domains. So not just .com or .co.uk from a technical point or sourcing content, but also involves market research and, working with the operational teams who are on the ground and ensuring that not just domestic customers are booking with Sixt, but we're also driving inbound traffic from the other points of sales as well. So it's a lot of different points, or let's say a lot of different channels that we need to work with. And this is really fun. So every day is completely different.
And how do you sort of ensure communication happens from between SEO and dev? And do you have meeting structures? And this might sound like we were talking about the audit thing. I didn't think people would be interested, but I'm actually super interested in how this communication aspect works, especially as an outside consultant. When I come into a company, it's always fascinating to see the differences in that. So how does the workflow sort of happen? So we, in the team, usually have like an expert per topic, and they're sort of designated as a kind of like a
product owner for that topic. So for example, there is someone who is in charge of technical SEO, and he will become best friends with the developers.
Right.
And the content team will work with marketing and social media and so on. And this sort of streamlines it more, because you don't just have a lot of different stakeholders bothering different people. Everyone knows who to talk to, and we're all like pretty friendly with each other, which is nice. So we sit on the same floor with the designers and the developers. We're always annoying each other, playing foosball. We have really good relationships. And yeah, this took time, but this means that now also, and we educated them on SEO, and now people know like who we are, why we exist, and it's much easier to get those prioritizations and stuff off the ground.
Yeah, I like that. So we're going to chat about featured snippets in just a moment, but as I understand, you focus mainly in Sixt, you focus mainly on technical SEO and sort of the snippet area. Like, what are your focus areas within SEO? You mentioned US is the location and so forth, but in terms of SEO, what specifically are the areas?
I honestly dabble in pretty much everything. And I think it's good to have like a well-rounded view on all things SEO. But what I mainly take care of are things like content strategies. On what I'm really loving and working on a lot more is like user-driven, user-centric SEO. So working with our UX teams and our CRO teams on ensuring that we're not just bringing website traffic, but we're helping them find their goal and to make a transaction. I do a lot of local SEO as well, so maintaining all of our directory listings in Google Maps. All sorts, really. Well,
that must be one aspect that helps keep it interesting, right? As you get to
definitely
focus on different areas. So let's chat about featured snippets. I want to start sort of at the beginning with these. So in your experience, why are they important? I know some businesses still, when they do SEO, they sort of skip over them, or they just let them happen by happenstance. But why are they important to sort of focus on in this proactive way?
Sorry for the cough.
I'll edit the cough out.
Cool. So I think in general, feature snippets are very important, maybe not just in 2019, but also in the future for a number of reasons. And it's mainly because Google is getting so aggressive with their SERP features that they're displaying. We're seeing all these heavy knowledge panels, knowledge cards, local packs, quick answers, all these different SERP features, which are displaying content from publishers. And feature snippets are one of those that you can directly impact yourself, you can be in, and stand to gain more traffic and more conversions from, because they're super prominent in the SERPs. So they're jumping up to position 0 above position 1. So that means that maybe you don't need to focus all your energies on ranking in position 1, but winning a feature snippet is a quick hack to get to the top.
Yeah.
And they're sort of like a really nice trust signal to the user, because Google is displaying your content as being a good response to someone's query for what they're looking for. Right. So this can also help with conversions. And there are great uplifts to, let's say, brand awareness when you're being shown as a trusted source of information. And I know people are always caring about, like, how can we optimize for voice search? I'm always hearing about voice search. In many cases, feature snippets are read aloud as a response to a query. And so when you're optimizing for feature snippets, you're also optimizing for conversational search too.
So let's talk about the true featured snippet, which is the box in position 0, as you said, because there's all kinds of other SERP features, and I think some people sometimes conflate the language. So there's people also ask, there's the knowledge panel on the right, but let's talk about the true featured snippets at the top. How do you find opportunity for a business to perhaps get a featured snippet? I heard you give an interview at Web Certain TV. I do my research here, where you mentioned some report in GA that I was curious if you could dig into a little bit more deeply. So this is about finding opportunity for featured snippets.
So there are either opportunities that are existing right now or opportunities that you can create. So the existing opportunities are the feature snippets out there that your competitors have that you should go and steal. And the quickest way of finding these is using your rank checking tools. For example, Searchmetrics, AWR Cloud, SEMrush. I think many of them now offer this feature where you can see which keywords of yours are triggering a feature snippet or which of your competitors are triggering one.
Right.
But you shouldn't just focus on what is already out there, that, the keywords that you're already hunting and targeting to win a feature snippet or steal one. You should also look into the more informational queries that either you are somehow ranking for, or maybe isn't triggering a feature snippet that you should optimize for, or you just have no idea that it existed. So I did this a few years ago, back before all the SEO software out there was able to track feature snippets. And what I did was take Google Search Console data within Google Analytics.
Right.
And that's because in Google Search Console, you cannot use regular expressions or more complex filters. And what I like to do is then filter using common question type keywords like what, why, how, things that refine an informational keyword, as those are the ones more likely to trigger a featured snippet. And when I have this data that I'm gaining impressions or clicks for, I do a bit of manual research on the SERPs, see what is triggering one, and then also if there isn't one being triggered, I know there is a really good opportunity out there, and then I can optimize my content and my pages to win that.
I see. So do you now not really need to do this GA report since a lot of the tools have this functionality built in, or is there still a reason to do that report now?
I still think it's very worthwhile query research, feature snippets aside, because there could be like these question keywords out there that you're not targeting at the moment. Also doing things like speaking with your sales and customer support teams to see what type of questions or problems people are asking them that you can easily provide content on the website to rank for. And even if you're not getting a feature snippet or if there isn't one, you're still providing useful content that's going to help your SEO strategy as a whole.
So you mentioned stealing competitors' featured snippets. How do you go about doing that? I mean, because if a competitor has a snippet, you have to assume they're probably doing something right, maybe by accident. Mm-hmm. So are there techniques or ways to go about stealing someone else's snippet that they have?
What I first like to do is a nice little trick of seeing the feature snippet queue, as I call it. So you take the keyword and then you use the minus operator with the domain that's winning the feature snippet. And then you can see pretty much the second in line, and you can keep going and filtering out more. You don't need to use the site operator, by the way, that doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. And then if I can sort of evaluate that I'm like next in the line, all I need to do is like do a bit of competitor research. What are they doing better than me in my feature snippet strategy, and adjust according to that. And then directly roll and index the page just to push this new change to Google and keep my fingers crossed.
And you also mentioned maybe earning a snippet where there is no snippet at all yet. So is there a way when you look at a search that you can tell that there might be a snippet there? Like, is there a way to know when a certain search query might deserve a snippet but just doesn't have one yet?
I think this comes over time. When you've seen as many feature snippet SERPs or whatever as I have during all this manual hunting, then you'll kind of get a better idea if there should be one or not. But I think sticking to anything sort of research related, so not direct answer questions that can easily be satisfied with a Google knowledge card, so those quick answers, something that requires a little bit more information for someone. And also, sometimes transactional intent keywords trigger featured snippets.
Yeah.
So as a rule of thumb, I like to test on these informational keywords, if they trigger a feature snippet or not, and just apply these learnings on a larger scale of pages, a larger set of pages, tested on different directories of my website, no matter if they're informational or transactional, and then see if I can also trigger it for those really lucrative money-making keywords too.
I want to ask about a few snippets that I used SEMrush to see that that Sixt has. And so I'll just name a few, and then I'm wondering if maybe we can choose one to chat about a little to see if there's things that the listeners can learn, because everybody can go out there and search Google and look at these snippets that you have and maybe try to analyze that. So I see you getting snippets for Kia car rentals, I-95 tolls, Florida, and unlimited mileage car rental. These all have a high amount of volume to them. And not only do you have the snippet, but I believe on most of these, you're also ranked number 1. So in particular, unlimited car mileage, unlimited mileage car rental, that's a great snippet. And so out of those, is there one that you would choose to maybe chat about a little? Because I think the listeners are probably wondering, well, like, what do I actually go do on my page to try to get a snippet? Do I change the HTML? Do I change the copy? So what's sort of the thought process behind maybe how Sixt was getting some of these snippets?
So I'll take 2 of those examples because they're quite different in a way.
Yeah.
So the Kia car rental, like the car model, we love our car model featured snippets. They're very lucrative. They drive a lot of traffic, and they have that transactional intent. So they're quite good at conversions as well.
And it's great because Kia is the brand being searched here. So you're sort of taking their brand search in a way.
Yes, evil. Yeah, and we did this a few years ago. We were basically, we started a project of creating these like long tail pages for specific brands and models that we had in our fleet, and doing a bit more research into the car models and just providing some really nice enriched content about what they can expect with a specific car that they will rent, why they should choose this, maybe if it's the right car for you. And we created specification tables using the data that we already had in our database. So this was quite easy to source if we had it, and maybe it's just requiring a little bit of research into the specific models, and then using very basic HTML tables to structure these car specifications. And then these started triggering some really nice and prominent feature snippets using the car data.
Yeah, I want to describe this snippet for the listeners. This one is a bullet point snippet, and I search Kia rental cars, and then in bold I see a Kia rental car Sixt rent-a-car, which is great. You've got your brand in there. It says according to Sixt.com, and then the first bullet is all written out: Kia Sorento for your next family vacation, etc., etc. But then the others are listed. So, do you believe the reason this snippet sends traffic is because of how it's displayed in Google? Like, it's not showing the user everything here.
Yes, this is quite important if traffic is a focused KPI of yours, making sure that when you're building these feature snippets, you're giving the user a reason to visit your webpage. Because, feature snippets do get a bad reputation out there. Yeah. People are afraid of losing clicks and traffic. But for the right kind of keywords, you're always going to win. So not all users can be satisfied directly on the SERP. For example, Kia car rental, they're not just interested in learning about it. They will probably want to satisfy their intent by visiting the page and hopefully making a conversion. But you can do things like bulking out your list to get this read more or see more tag that people can click. Obviously, it always depends. You don't want to be just adding more additional points just for the sake of it. Yeah. But you always have to bear this in mind. And even if you're not driving that click or winning clicks, you still have to think about the other benefits, such as standing out as being that trusted brand in the search result.
And when I look at the page itself, you mentioned there being HTML tables. How important is there being tables specifically? And then also, for example, I see the Kia Sorento with a link to the Kia Sorento page. That's an H4 tag. Does the exact H tag matter? Like how perfect do you need to be with the HTML, or does it just need to be structured in some way?
I think the structure is really everything, or like that's so important. So you really have to create this useful and satisfying content. But if you're not providing these snippet-worthy paragraphs or these grabbable lists and tables, then it's just not going to perform well. So this is also a very important part. And the headline structure, I would say I rarely see a H1 being taken for the featured snippet title. So I try and do a more enticing H1 in my other projects and domains. And then I try and use the H2 for the featured snippet. That means not just directly grabbing the question keyword or the triggering query, but somehow rewording it in a more natural way.
I also want to point something out to the listeners that I'm super passionate about, which is content length and the myth that content needs to be any certain length, i.e. usually people assume long, because you see those studies that, and maybe you have insight on this, but you see studies that, the average ranking number one piece of content is like 1,500 words or something.
Yeah.
I want to point out, this is a very short piece of content. I haven't clicked open every accordion here, but there's not a lot of words, yet this piece of content, according to SEMrush, gets at least 500 or maybe 1,000 visits a month just in US Google. So I want to point that out, and maybe you have insight there as well in terms of providing that value to the user, because I think a lot of people think the page needs to have a lot of words, but it doesn't, right? You don't need a long piece of content.
I think word count, it's always relative. It always depends on what someone's looking for. And when, in this case, someone is hoping to rent a car, yes, they have the option to read more about that specific model, but I don't need to give them the full history of this brand. So I'm not just going to keep adding and stuffing more content in there. I just want them to find what they're looking for, and then we can measure this as well on the page. Measure things like time on site, time on page, if they're getting lost, if they're clicking around. And yeah, that's much more useful to observe rather than text length, ranking factor, or featured snippet factor.
Absolutely. So we have to get to some Twitter questions, which are fabulous. We'll get to those in one moment. You did mention voice search a little while ago, and I did want to ask about this. So are you in any way, if at all, measuring or trying to account for voice search as an input or maybe even an output? I know there's not a lot of data here in the SEO world, and it's tricky to measure and even tricky to understand the value of voice search. So is this something that you're looking at all?
Specifically, right now, I'm not so much. Basically, I'm happy if I'm winning these feature snippets, I can say, okay, I did my part for the voice search game. But what's kind of cool, maybe a little bit off topic, but one of our teams here has built an Alexa skill for car rental for Sixt. So people can directly book a car via this, and then we hope to use this data and these insights to further our voice search game as well in the future. Yeah,
it's definitely one of those things in SEO right now that if you're interested, which you probably should be, you should be experimenting with it at least, or testing some things out. So great, let's get to some Twitter questions. So the first comes from Tom Broadbeck. He is a co-host of Edge of the Web podcast. I was on episode 212, if anybody wants to check that out.
Nice.
Have you ever been on their show, Izzi?
No, but hi, Tom.
You should be, and I'll introduce you. So you should be a guest on Edge of the Web. But he wants to know, can you trigger a new featured snippet? I sort of asked this, but can you trigger one on a SERP that doesn't have one? It seems people target SERPs that already have the featured snippets, but can you target a SERP that has no featured snippet and create content that triggers one? If so, maybe this is the part I hadn't asked already. Does a certain content format work better? So Tom's sort of a second part onto what I already asked. So when you're trying to get a new snippet, is there a great way, like a better way to approach getting a new snippet where there is not one already?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, it is definitely possible. And always remember that, every featured snippet SERP was once a non-featured snippet SERP. So don't just stop at what is already out there. And yeah, I think, honestly, to give a very simple answer, tables. I love tables, and Google seems to love them as well. Like, even if you don't have some kind of numerical or comparison data to provide on your landing page, just try and somehow work that in there if you really want that featured snippet.
Yeah.
Test it. Maybe it's super useful for your user. Maybe they're not clicking at all. Maybe they are just because it exists. But tables, basic HTML tables, they are awesome. And also, if you're not getting a featured snippet, they can help with providing these enriched standard snippets, where below your search snippet, it's displaying the content in a little table as well. Maybe we can link to a screenshot if I didn't explain it well enough, but that's a nice little feature as well on top of that.
I like that. The tables thing is great. It's often not mentioned or talked about when people strategize around the snippets. The next question about snippets comes from Tony Kelly. He wants to know, is there any correlation between featured snippet performance and performance of keywords with a more commercial intent that will drive business performance? For example, if a brand has good featured snippet coverage, are they likely to rank well for higher intent keywords as well? Any observations there?
So in general, I don't really see a correlation, like an explicit correlation, and I wouldn't exactly know how to say that with 100% confidence. But basically, commercial intent feature snippets are won by, I think, quite high quality domains and quite high authority domains. But in general, I wouldn't say that just by triggering feature snippets, you have a chance to impact your other pages as well, your other keywords.
I would agree. I also don't see a correlation there either. So Darren Cronian asks, he says he has a FAQ section on his website that he's creating for content and is wondering if feature snippets can be implemented and what are the benefits. And then he said, and maybe he means, how do you implement it? So should he, and then how would he go about doing that?
So yes, you should, because as I will repeat, even if you're not getting clicks, it's still very good to be that trusted source. So in general, when you're building your FAQ section, I would say, but you want to create feature snippets for it, I would say don't put all your questions and answers on one page or on, like, let's say a collection of pages. Even though you have a selection of high authority ranking landing pages, if you want to get featured snippets for that, I've noticed that they don't usually get taken from these, let's say, long form content FAQ pages. So I would recommend you to, if you can, provide, let's say, quick or brief answers to someone's question on the FAQ overview page, and then deep link to detailed pages where you can give more information, and then also enrich that page with supplementary related content as well. And then you can do all the optimizations like structuring it and achieving those feature snippets for the detail pages. And additionally, you should use the FAQ overview page to get rich snippets. So these new FAQ rich results using schema markup. And then within each overview question, each insight or teaser into the specific answer, you can provide deep links as well that's directly in the SERPs, which is really cool. And yeah, that's my recommendation.
And so what is this new, I think you said a new rich snippet? What is that? I'm not sure.
It's kind of new now, I think like 2 or 3 months old. And what it does is when your URL is ranking in the SERP under your snippet, you have this little drop down menu. So each question can be clickable and expanded and provides the answer below it. And this is a rich snippet. So there'll be multiple ones per page. And unlike feature snippets where there will be only one, if any, and the user can then directly on the SERPs access every single marked up question. So
Right.
please do test it rather than like applying it to all your pages to see if this does have positive uplifts to your traffic and to your on-site engagement. Maybe it decreases bounce rate when people can access and see if this is the right result for them directly in the SERP.
And I think
those are pretty cool.
And the deep linking to additional pages is really great strategy, not only for snippets, but for regular SEO. It's something I see a lot of companies and people doing SEO that they overlook is, yes, you should try to rank a particular page, but that page may rank better based upon how you link to it and how all those pages are structured together. It's something that I often am trying to encourage others to do as well. Question for myself. How can you maintain a featured snippet once you earn that snippet? I often, maybe this is just a perception of mine, but I often see these as sort of elusive or fluid, where they may change a lot. But are there things that you've done to try to maintain a snippet once you receive one?
Yeah, they can be really volatile, which is quite annoying. Say when you win it and you're like cracking open the champagne and then 10 minutes later it's gone, which is pretty annoying. And I hear this question a lot, like at conferences when I speak to people, they want to know how to maintain that feature snippet. And at Sixt, we have perfected our own formula to get feature snippets that are triggered and that stick. And this took time. This took perfection, tweaking, testing different strategies. And even if I could, my strategy wouldn't particularly work for you and your domain or your content. So I would say it does require testing, document everything, like every page change that you've done, and monitor what your competitors are doing as well, because maybe you're in a little battle with them.
Right.
But once you find that winning strategy, that winning recipe, hopefully then they stay longer for good. And just make sure that people are also interacting with it, because I'm pretty sure that Google relies on direct feedback for these feature snippets. Say if they're reporting the feature snippet if it's not useful, but also if maybe someone is seeing the feature snippet result and then amends their search because it wasn't satisfactory enough. I'm pretty sure they also take that into consideration as well. So maybe you're just not relevant. Maybe you need to improve the content and focus on that.
So obviously you don't have to give away your formula, and like you said, it wouldn't apply to others perhaps, but it sounds like what you're really doing is not only getting the snippet, but then maybe you're looking at some sort of user metric to see how users, are you looking in, are there any metrics you're looking at? Search console, bounce rate? I know bounce rate's a terrible metric, but are you looking at on-page metrics? I hate bounce rate. It's
Why
terrible.
Do you hate bounce rate?
Well, bounce rate doesn't tell you a whole lot, right? It's just and when you don't click on a second page, the bounce rate is always going to be 0, right? Or it's going to be like there's no time on. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of bounce rate. I am a fan of relative bounce rate though. So
yes, that can be way more useful.
Yeah. What pages have the worst bounce rate out of a similar set of pages on your site? That I'm a huge fan of. Or mashing it with other metrics. Maybe it's this click metric. Maybe you look at what's getting clicks from searches and then you try to get, right? So, but are there metrics that you look at in terms of making sure users like the content when they are finding it?
So on a larger scale, I like to look at the general engagement metrics such as time on site, also bounce rate sometimes. But let's say for my really focus feature snippets that bring significant amounts of performance and traffic, I like to see if they're actually interacting and scrolling with the content that was nominated for a featured snippet.
Right.
And also I like to look at conversions, because for me, that's what the feature snippet is driving, especially for when I can pair it with the query that's bringing them, when I'm confident that a URL is triggering many of those related feature snippets for a URL, then I can look into these engagement metrics as well. So maybe it's not uplifting traffic because it's not the right result for someone.
Right.
But when I know that conversion rate or just in general conversions is going up, time on page, scroll depth I like to look at as well, especially if it's a little bit lower down the page. And we like to set up some nice events. So doing event tracking using Google Analytics, then that's also super useful as well to see if they're clicking on there, if they're reading it, scrolling, and so on.
I like that. And by the way, I'll drop a few tools in the show notes for tracking scroll depth and things like Hotjar is one I like to use.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a couple like sort of quick hit questions around other SERP features.
Sure.
So we mentioned a little of these people also ask boxes. You see these in search where you've got like 4 questions, you click on it, the answer pops down, you can infinitely just clicking on more questions. Do you do anything to proactively try to get in those, the people also ask boxes?
Actually, I don't. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm pretty confident, and this does happen as I see more often, like the more structured people also ask results. So you now also see tables, you see lists.
Yeah.
That when you're optimizing for those feature snippets, you have a high chance of getting in those people also ask boxes too.
Right.
So I don't actively track them as much, but what I do like to use them for is really good related query research and feature snippet question research too.
Right.
And there are ways of scraping the SERP using XPath and Chrome plugins to sort of get those in bulk people also ask boxes. And that's really quick and easy feature snippet and content query research.
Yeah, I like that, using it for content research. So one thing I was researching for a client the other day, I was noticing in mobile, certain results were getting, in their actual result, they were getting thumbnail images that you could kind of scroll through. So this is just a curiosity of my own. I don't know if you have any experience around how to get those, how they happen. For me, I was just looking at it and seeing, well, this page has images, so there's thumbnails here. I don't know if that's something that you can actually optimize for.
But so it's good that you brought up mobile image thumbnails, because I think those are a really good quick win for your SERP appearance, and not many people take advantage of that. If you haven't seen, a lot of mobile SERPs do have those thumbnails in there. In terms of the sliding ones, I think it just makes sense to have those optimized images on your page. So let's say compressed file size, they should have the focus image within a square, because that's going to be taken by Google, and using correct alt tags. And even adding your Open Graph images, they can be taken for these mobile image thumbnails as well.
So Facebook Open Graph images. So tagging with Facebook?
Exactly. So sometimes when, so it's of course you should have an image on there if it makes sense, but if you don't and you're not optimizing for those mobile image thumbnails, sometimes Google will take your Open Graph image to display in the SERP.
Interesting.
Quite interesting.
Yeah. I had heard, I think another guest had mentioned Google looking at Facebook Open Graph tags. And one thing I noticed that 6TAS is, this is kind of rare, I think, nowadays, is not only do you have the featured snippet for some things, but also the image in the featured snippet. Often now you see the snippet from one site, but then the image from another. And so are there things that you do to also optimize for getting the image in a traditional featured snippet?
It's kind of funny. I hear this a lot from my American SEO friends. But in Europe, we don't usually have this problem as much, as the competitor is taking over that image spot. So maybe it's an American thing. I don't know. But yeah, it is a problem, especially when there are branded images in your text feature snippet. That's so annoying. But yeah, general optimizations I like to stick by is providing a diagram if it's explanatory content. Also, make sure it's just optimized next to the text that you're nominating. It uses method keywords within the alt text. I keep getting that wrong. It's Friday evening.
That's okay.
And I know people have won the image spot by using the step number and the description of the headline as well in there. So just play around and just make sure that you're not using oversized or really heavy images on that page. Make it grabbable, and
So if it's like how to tie a tie, step 1, you actually put step 1 in the image itself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I've actually, now you said that, I've seen that, but never thought to actually do that proactively. Had a question from Twitter on structured data. Sam Barnes wants to know, how significant is structured data as a ranking factor, and how do you think that might shift in the future?
So I wouldn't say structured data is a ranking factor, but I know that's like a big argument among SEOs. Like, is it a direct ranking factor or indirect? So directly, no. But you can use structured data to do things like building those enriched results, those rich snippets. And this can bring more engaged traffic to your website. So when someone is looking on a SERP for a specific recipe, they're looking at these rich snippets. They're looking into the data that's displayed there, and then they can find the right result for them. And this means less bounces, less exits, higher time on site, all these nice engagements, hopefully conversions as well. And this can be a really cool relevancy signal to Google that you deserve to rank either in the current position or in a higher position, and so on. And as I know that Google is always expanding their knowledge graph and people are afraid of feeding their data to Google in order to steal it, this shouldn't put you off from using structured data. So I think rather than just being excluded because you're afraid of these aggressive SERP features, just think about, you're maybe losing the chance of being in these features, or your competitor, even worse, being there.
Right.
So yeah.
Have you tried the new, sort of newish, how-to schema? It was announced at Google.io or Google I/O. Any experience with that yet? Experiments with that?
I have not used it yet, unfortunately. I was using how-to schema in the past to see if it had an impact on feature snippets. The test was inconclusive. I sort of believed that it did have a nice uplift because it was giving this kind of explicit information to Google that I'm providing like a how-to piece of content, and then this should help trigger it for those method-related keywords. But no, it was then generating errors in my search console, so I cannot use it anymore for a feature snippet unless I'm marking up my content correctly for the rich snippet. So I've not yet got any rich results for that.
Well, I'm in the same boat. I haven't had the opportunity to try the how-to schema yet either, but I'm definitely interested in trying that out.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Have some questions here that sort of fall into a miscellaneous type of category. So we're going to do some quick rounds through different topics. But Greta wants to know something on the more hypothetical side. She wants to know, would you say that some search engines will eventually surpass Google because of privacy concerns, like DuckDuckGo, who's known as being the private search engine? So do you see like whether it be privacy or any other reason that any other search engine would surpass Google?
I do keep hearing that DuckDuckGo is the go-to search engine for SEOs, right? Do you hear this too? Or is it just me?
I know Will Reynolds has tried using DuckDuckGo a lot, and he's actually mentioned the biggest thing he misses as a user is the snippets, because that DuckDuckGo, as far as I know, does not have them. I don't use DuckDuckGo. I've tried using that and Bing, and I'm always, unfortunately, not satisfied. I tried for a little while, and it's tough. I think I've tweeted a little while ago, if Bing just improved their kind of aesthetic, I would be far more likely to use Bing. But it is such an ugly search engine that I have a very hard time. Yeah, just the fonts, the sizing, it really drives me nuts. I'm a big font person, and the spacing and the sizing is really, really terrible. I wish somebody would fix Bing from that perspective. But
I totally agree. And I like playing around with different search engines, even like also Yandex as well, and Baidu.
Yeah.
Even though I cannot speak Chinese at all, or type Chinese. But I am generally interested in like user interfaces of search engines. And I know that the privacy is a strong thing for people, but also so is usability and so is design. And I don't think any can surpass Google. And maybe there is a small shift to the other search engines, but Google is just going to get even more aggressive or even more, let's say, user-centric. They're going to keep improving their service, and then maybe that even means that they will improve their privacy restrictions and rules in order to benefit their users. But as such a big company who knows, they have to still be market leader. They're going to keep improving that. So and I can't use any other search engine than Google.
It's really, really tough. Fun fact, I asked Rand Fishkin this question in person at Search Lab Boston in 2014 or 13 or something on video. I'm going to link to that in the show notes so everyone can go check that out and see what Rand said like 4 or 5 or 6 years ago. And you will also see a beardless Rand Fishkin because he shaved for the entire month for some what do they call it? Some donation. That's not the word.
Like a charity thing.
Charity. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Andre wants to know, I had no idea what he was talking about. So I'm just sort of curious if you have any idea. He says, can we see the Excel table again? I'd love to try that.
Oh.
Do you know what he's talking about? Did he see a talk you gave or something, or?
I think I know what he's talking about. So I showed in a recent seminar or webinar with DeepCrawl how I build structured data in JSON LD using Excel for a lot of different pages. So maybe, we can link to that and he can see it there. Okay,
now that you mention this, can you talk about that a little bit more? So how exactly does that work?
So on some large-scale websites, we don't always have the resources to have dynamically inserted or built via our database structured data using what we have on the page. So what I like to do is scrape my website using custom extractions, put it into Excel, and then around that data, using it as a placeholder, create custom schema markup blobs, as I like to call them. And then in bulk, I can create all these different pieces of schema ready to be entered into my content management system. It's basically creating schema using the data existing on my website with one click and a nice big formula.
Okay, no wonder why he wanted to see that Excel table. So yes, please, whatever you can share of that, we'll put that in the show notes as well, which for everyone listening is evolvingseo.com/wire is where the show notes will be. So Farhan wants to know, what if you try to remove, this is a general question because my first tweet, I didn't actually say what the show is going to be about. He wanted, and you can feel free to pass on any of these, but he says, what if you try to remove or delete index pages with Google link removal tool and no luck? So basically, what if you're trying to de-index something and it's just not working? Any thoughts there? Any tips, suggestions? If not, I could jump in, but de-indexing issues.
This is like a good John Muller question.
Right.
Put it to him. Yeah.
Again,
I would need to learn more about the problem because there could be a whole host of things. But maybe you have a general answer for him. That's
my general, like I always try to remind people, think of search engines in 4 stages: discover, crawl, index, and rank. Because I often find people conflate those things. So Google needs to crawl a URL before they can no index it. So if you're blocking the crawl, they can't crawl it to see the no index tag. So it might not, so you need to check all stages of that. Like, did Google actually see and know that the URL exists that you're trying to remove? Okay, yes. Then did they crawl it? You can look in Search Console, run the inspect tool. You can go to your log files. Okay, did they crawl it? And it's still not indexed, or it's still not de-indexed? Well, is the no index tag there, right? So you just got to run through. It's like a diagnostic. That's what I would do. So
very nice.
Drew Roberts wants to know what sort of, this is again general, but do you have any just tips or foundational advice for anyone with a business launching a new website?
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's my fault. Because I didn't even say, like I said in the first tweet, what the show is about. So fielding all kinds of questions here.
So maybe it's best to give a really good resource that I know out there to this. Because, that's a huge question, but a very good one. So though I contributed recently to this really cool article created by a Content King app. And they gave all the fundamentals you need for launching a new website. So everything sort of in your structure, in your company, to the technical stuff as well.
Oh, great.
So I just think in general, you need to be aware of making sure that your CMS is equipped for all those SEO needs. Make sure SEO is well known to the developers from the beginning. It should be really intertwined in the development process before launch rather than sprinkled on top at the end. So just bear that in mind in order to make sure your website is super established for those search engines from the get-go.
I like that. I'll give one quick answer here because I see it as a mistake all of the time, especially if you're doing a service or SaaS business. Make sure you have a page for each distinct service that you offer. So super common example, like let's say you do marketing and web design, etc. Like have an SEO page, have a social media page, right? So that's why I see lacking is like, oh, we want to rank for, we do digital PR, but they have no page for that. So you need to have a distinct page. So make sure if that's the type of business you're setting up that you have those pages. Nice. So we had a question about your speaking. So I want to ask a little bit about the speaking that you do and then your podcast. Cool. So Omar Ortiz says, did you always know you wanted to be a speaker or how did you fall into that? And then related, so two-part, with so many smart advanced SEOs out there, were you nervous? Were you afraid that people would be judging you? It's often people say like their number one fear is public speaking, like before even death. So how did you get into that? And then how did that sort of go for you in terms of nerves?
I think rightly so. Public speaking is terrifying. And the more I do it, I'm still really, really nervous beforehand. I didn't really plan to do any public speaking or, talking at events, but I do think I have some kind of relatable personality traits that help this. Like for some reason, I seem to be quite good at giving toasts at like birthday parties and things. I don't know why. Everyone's always like, Izzy, give us a speech. And yeah, I not in a bad way, but I do seem to like attention. But also, I can be quite an introvert. So even though I'm quite funny sometimes and I love meeting new people, I sometimes struggle with like speaking to them. So in the beginning, I was like, if I speak at a conference, I can meet new people by using my talk as a nice icebreaker. Yeah. And that worked really well. Like I didn't need to approach people, they were approaching me. And that's kind of why I got started. Also because it's really fun to go to these conferences and events. You can learn so much from there. You can meet awesome people. And I just started from just trying it out at local meetups. That's my biggest recommendation, and getting more practice in speaking. If there aren't any in your town or your city, maybe you and your company can create one yourself. That's a really nice way of networking and also helps with recruitment. And yeah, for sure, I'm always afraid of being judged. I've not been in this industry as long as all of my idols on the stage, but I like to bear in mind that hopefully there is someone in the audience who can get value, or maybe even if they know this topic so well, hopefully I can bring like a different sort of fresh perspective. And I think if you keep these things in mind, which is quite difficult when you're really nervous, but just try to remember that no one is there to see you fail in the audience. They're there to learn something from you. They're on your side. They don't want you to be stressed or to forget your words. And when I remember this when I'm on stage, it just really calms me down a little bit.
It's very funny. One thing I realized doing interviews at Tech SEO Boost in Boston, which I will be at again this year, by the way, nice. I had people come up to me because they had heard the podcast, and I had never quite experienced that before. It was the first sort of really hardcore SEO event that I was at since the podcast has had a wider audience. But I found the same thing. It was really, really cool. So I've learned to describe myself as a shy extrovert. So I extrovert in the sense where I really do get energy interacting with people. And when I left Tech SEO Boost, I didn't sleep for like 2 days because I was just so wired from that. But I will not approach people. So if anybody out there listening sees me at an event, definitely come say hello because I want to interact with people, but I'm not the one that's going to go up to you. So I will
come say hello to you.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
And I'm curious, how did your first sort of speaking engagements happen? Were you just invited to an event? Did you apply? Like, how did that actually happen?
So it happened here in Munich. We were hosting the Munich Technical SEO Meetup. and they didn't have any speakers. And they didn't have an event location or any speakers. So we at Six said, hey, we have a really cool space for an event. You can host it here. That's no problem. And they're like, oh, but we have no speakers. And my boss was like, oh, well, Izzi has a really cool project and campaign going on at the moment. She will love to talk about it. And I was like, wait, what? Really?
So he just sort of nominated you for you.
Yeah, he nominated me in it. And I was like, no, it's not ready. The data's not like complete yet. And he was like, Izzi, come on, you got some really cool insights. Just give it a go. And I'm so glad I did, because even though it was, my first time speaking, it was still so enjoyable. And the meetup audience is always like really engaged. It's more friendly. Well, it's easier when you can see people laughing at you rather than in a big conference auditorium.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's more friendly, but yeah, that was really nice. And then there was sort of like a domino effect. So one person saw me at one event who had their own event and they wanted me to speak at theirs. And then it sort of went on from that. And the more I spoke, the more people were like asking me, hey, do you want to speak at my conference? And that was really awesome. So once you get started and people see you and hear of you, then it sort of happens like that.
That's great. And how do you design your own slides? One thing I liked in your slides is the fiery tip, which is just a really cool, like it not only provides utility of like just telling you, here's a tip for you so you can pay attention, but it was also done in a very sort of fun way. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do design my own slides. I see these amazing decks at conferences and I always feel jealous, but I kind of enjoy the raggedness of my little fiery tips and slides, but that's also part of who I am, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you may have seen nice slides at conferences, but you've never seen my slides. They are hideous. It's like white background and Arial bold text, and that's it with a picture.
Hey, that's good.
They're
as
terrible.
long as the content is, valuable, it doesn't matter what they look like.
So I want to ask a little bit about your podcast. So it's the Izzi and Nil show.
Yes.
And so who is Nil and how did the show come about, and tell me a little bit about it?
So Niels is my best friend. He's German, but now he's living in Bali, which makes recording a little bit hard. And he's one of the top conversion rate optimization experts in Germany. Mm-hmm. So he's really well known here, but now we're getting him more well known in the UK and in the US. And we're good friends, so we have a great dynamic. And I love the crossover and the ways that SEO and CRO and UX complement or contrast with each other. So we thought that would be a really nice angle for us to have a podcast. So we can discuss different topics, maybe 1 week focused on an SEO theme, or 1 week more about CRO. And yeah, that's how it happened.
And have you seen any sort of benefits, either quantitative or qualitative, from having a podcast? I know when I started this podcast, it took a little while, right? Like I started to get a couple little inquiries. This podcast for me is not really about leads or business, but the networking has been really great. So I don't know if you interview people on your show or if it's just, you and your co-host, but sort of any results or benefits, or is it more of a sort of thing you're doing mainly for the enjoyment of it?
Yeah, so it's actually a fun thing for us to work on together, because we discuss a lot about these topics. So the podcast was a really nice way of like bringing that to the public in a fun way. At the moment, in terms of impact, we're still kind of in the establishment phase. And like I said before, with him being 7 hours in the future and I'm at work in the office all day, so it's quite hard to record it on a weekly basis as we wanted to. Yeah. But yeah, we have had some nice mentions online on social media, and people, I'm meeting people at conferences are like, oh, I love your podcast. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. That's so nice to hear, right? When they come up to you, and that just like warms my heart a little bit, which is good.
So for the folks listening to this show, if they want to go check out and I pronounced his name wrong, Izzi and Niels show,
yes.
Is there a particular episode that you might point the listeners of this show to, or one you really like, or
I think my favorite episode is all about our biggest failures. That's quite a wholesome and I think educational in a more general way in online marketing, but also things like setting up a business. And yeah, it's one of my favorite episodes.
Awesome. So as we wrap things up, I'm going to have you tell people where they can find you online, but also, is there anywhere you're going to be at an event, speaking or attending in the UK, US, anywhere sort of in the near future that people can say hello to you in real life?
I do need to remember this. Wait, let me look on my website.
Yep. I wouldn't know either, so sorry to...
That's okay. I wasn't expecting that. So I will be in Berlin at the end of September at SMX Advanced Europe, which I'm really excited about. I'm talking about local SEO and all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I'll be in Oxford for Unboxed in October. And then during November, I have 2 conferences. So I'll be speaking in Bali, which I've never been to before, with Niels about how SEO and CRO can work together.
Oh, very cool. So there's a result. Yeah. Did the podcast lead to that sort of co-speaking event?
Yes, that's true. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, that was a really nice outcome that people can kind of recognize us together. And it was really fun speaking on stage with him. We wore T-shirts with each of us faces on, which was quite a very nice icebreaker anyway as well. Yeah,
that's very funny. So cool. Well, and also tell the listeners where they can find you online. Twitter, LinkedIn, website, etc.
You can find me on Twitter with the handle Izzi on Fire. The fire thing is like a little thing that I like to use every now and then. And my website is just standard izzismith.com. But be careful because Izzi is spelled the weird way, so I-Z-Z-I.
And for those of you in the US, I-Z-Z-I.
Oh, yeah, true.
And so also I want to mention, I don't mention this often, but I have a Twitter list of all guests that have been on Experts in the Wire. It's linked to my Twitter profile, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. Awesome. So you can follow along with all your favorite hosts and guests on Experts in the Wire. Well, Izzi, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic episode. Can't wait to hit publish on this. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you everyone next time.